Have you ever reached a point where words just don't work anymore? Where no amount of explaining, reasoning, or pleading seems to change the dynamic, especially with someone who thrives on drama, control, or emotional manipulation? Let me tell you this: silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence, when used with intention, is power. There comes a time when the most courageous thing you can do is to say absolutely nothing. See, we're often taught to speak our truth, to stand up for ourselves, to confront, to defend, to explain. And yes, those things have their place. But when you're dealing with a narcissist, someone who feeds off your energy, your reactions, your emotional ups and downs, then silence becomes your greatest weapon. And it's not a weapon meant to harm. It's a shield meant to protect. Because narcissists, manipulators, toxic individuals, they don't feed on logic. They feed on attention. They survive on your confusion, your pain, your desperate need to be understood. So the moment you stop feeding that fire, the moment you choose silence over reaction, that's when everything shifts. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them your peace. You don't owe them an explanation for reclaiming your power. This isn't about ghosting people or giving them the cold shoulder out of spite. This is about spiritual discipline. It's about developing the emotional intelligence to know when a conversation is no longer a dialogue, but a trap. The Stoics believed in mastering the self before mastering the world. Epictetus once said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." So what happens when you remove your mind from the battlefield? You win without saying a word. And the silence that follows. It's not empty. It's full of boundaries. It's full of strength. It's full of self-respect. When you go silent, you stop explaining your worth. You stop negotiating your value. You stop asking for validation from people who were never equipped to give it. And here's the truth: they don't want you to know. When you walk away in silence, without the dramatic send-off, without the final text, without the emotional unraveling, it terrifies them. Because they can't manipulate silence. They can't spin silence into guilt. They can't argue with what isn't said. Silence drives narcissists crazy because it strips away their illusion of control. It leaves them alone with themselves. And for people who spend their entire lives projecting, avoiding, and blaming, that's a prison they can't escape. You, on the other hand, are finally free. So if you're in a space where talking has turned into begging, where being heard means being hurt, where your voice is no longer your own, then let silence speak for you, not as a punishment, but as a declaration. I will no longer betray my peace to comfort your chaos. This is the beginning of a different kind of power. The kind that doesn't need applause, the kind that doesn't need to shout, the kind that walks away quietly and never looks back. Because sometimes the loudest move you can make is choosing to go silent. Part 1. Understanding the narcissist's panic phase. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever gone quiet on someone and suddenly they lost their mind? I'm not talking about healthy people who check in out of concern. I'm talking about that person, the one who once ignored your needs, disrespected your boundaries, made you feel like your voice didn't matter, and the moment you stopped talking, they started panicking. Why does silence trigger them so deeply? Because to a narcissist, silence isn't just a pause. It's psychological death. You see, narcissists don't feel real unless someone else is giving them attention. It doesn't even have to be good attention. Anger, arguments, tears, even insults. These are all forms of fuel to them. They feed off your emotional reaction like it's oxygen. When you go silent, you're not just walking away from chaos. you're cutting off their air supply. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. There's a biological reason for their reaction. This isn't just personality, it's chemistry. When you engage with a narcissist, argue, text back, explain yourself, even try to defend your silence, you're giving them a dopamine hit. Every reply is a tiny reward. Every word is proof they still matter. But when you go completely silent, no texts, no calls, no social media peaks, no just checking in, their brain doesn't just get disappointed, it goes into withdrawal. Think about that for a second. The same chemical circuits that activate in addiction, dopamine highs, followed by cortisol crashes, are what get triggered when a narcissist loses your attention. And just like any addict cut off from their supply, they panic, they spiral. They scramble to get their fix. Let me give you a real example. A woman I once coached, let's call her Lisa, had finally had enough. After months of emotional manipulation and gaslighting, she cut ties with her ex. No dramatic exit, no long explanations. Just silence. 6 hours later, 6 hours, she had 112 text messages, all from him. They ranged from, "Are you okay?" to, "You're cruel for ignoring me," to, "I miss you." "Please talk to me," to, "You'll regret this." Do you see the pattern? When they realize they're no longer the center of your emotional universe, they lose control. And here's the thing. Narcissists don't actually miss you as a person. They miss the power they had over your emotions. They don't want connection. They want control. And silence destroys their illusion of control. This is why they react with such intensity. Your silence forces them to face a terrifying question they spend their whole lives avoiding. What am I without someone else to react to me? It's a question that echoes in their empty space, and that echo is unbearable for them. Now, you might be asking, why does this matter to me? Because understanding this response isn't about diagnosing someone. It's about protecting yourself from being pulled back into a toxic dance you've already stepped away from. When you see their panic for what it is, not love, not regret, but withdrawal, you stop personalizing it. You stop thinking, maybe they've changed. You stop wondering, was I too harsh? You start realizing, this isn't about your silence being wrong. This is about your silence being powerful. The Stoics teach us that what we don't react to defines us more than what we do. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." Your silence is a choice, a refusal to be harmed, a refusal to be pulled back into a cycle that breaks your spirit. And let me tell you, when you truly grasp that silence is not passive, it becomes your most potent act of self-respect. You are not ignoring them to hurt them. You are preserving yourself to heal you. You are removing your presence from a space where it was once exploited. And that too takes more courage than most people will ever understand. So the next time you hear the ping of a desperate message or feel the pull to respond just to clear the air, pause, breathe. Remember, the storm you hear on the outside is just their panic echoing off the walls of their own emptiness. And you are not obligated to enter that storm again. Part 2. Narcissistic Rage, when silence becomes a threat. So let's take it a step further. What happens when your silence, your boundary, your emotional clarity doesn't just trigger panic, but sparks rage? Because for some narcissists, your silence isn't just unsettling. It's threatening. It's an attack on their fragile ego. And when that illusion of control starts slipping through their fingers, they don't quietly accept it. They explode. Now here's the hard truth. Their rage isn't about love. It's not about missing you. It's not even about right or wrong. It's about losing control. When you go silent, they can no longer predict you. They can't read your emotions. They don't know if they still have influence over you. And that, to someone whose entire identity is built on power and dominance, feels like war. Let me give you a real example. David had been dating Sophia for over a year. At first, he was charming, attentive, charismatic, emotionally intense. But over time, he grew possessive, manipulative, and controlling. Sophia, after months of emotional exhaustion, finally cut all contact. No messages, no confrontation, no drawn-out goodbye. Just silence. At first, David sent texts, then voice notes. Then guilt-filled paragraphs. When none of it worked, he snapped. He started telling mutual friends that Sophia was unstable, that she was a cheater, that she had ghosted him after using him. He even went as far as posting vague, hurtful things on social media, hoping she'd see them, hoping to provoke a reaction. Any reaction. Why? Because narcissistic rage often hides behind a mask of victimhood. They spin the story not because it's true, but because they need a narrative that keeps them in control. And when you stay silent, when you don't react, that silence gets under their skin like nothing else. Your refusal to engage becomes the ultimate rejection. So they fight back, not to win you back, but to win control back. And let's be clear, this rage can take many forms. Sometimes it's direct. Angry texts, name-calling, accusations, threats of exposure or shame. Sometimes it's more subtle. Guilt-tripping, playing the victim, telling people, "I just don't know what happened. They changed." Other times, it's outright warfare. Smearing your name publicly, turning friends and family against you, emotional blackmail through shared children, finances, or secrets. But here's what I need you to hear. None of this is about truth. It's about power. And if you respond emotionally, if you try to defend yourself, set the record straight, explain your side, you're stepping right back into the role they want you to play. Reactive, emotional, off balance. So how do you deal with this? This is where Stoic wisdom becomes more than theory. It becomes your armor. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." That's the essence of your strategy here. Document. Don't engage. Keep screenshots. Write down incidents. Save emails or messages. Not for revenge, but for clarity and protection if needed. Because facts will protect you. Emotions won't. And when they try to bait you into a fight, into defending yourself or talking it out, remember, silence is not passive. It's power under control. Set boundaries that are cold, factual, and unemotional. Respond only when necessary, and only in writing, only with clarity. And even then, keep it short. Keep it neutral. No emotion, no explanation, no apology for protecting your peace. Now you might wonder, isn't that cold? Isn't that heartless? Let me flip that question. Is it cold to stop feeding someone who only consumes your peace? Is it heartless to walk away from emotional chaos and choose stillness? The Stoics weren't cold. They were disciplined. They believed in detachment not because they didn't feel, but because they refused to be ruled by their feelings. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about your sanity, your energy, and your growth to stop dancing with chaos. So if you're facing narcissistic rage right now, if someone is attacking your character, playing the victim, or guilt-tripping you for walking away, don't respond emotionally. Don't justify. Don't argue on their battlefield. Because the truth is this: you don't need to win a war when you've already walked off the battlefield. Your silence is the signal that you've chosen peace over power struggles, that you've matured past the need for validation, that your identity is no longer built on being understood by someone who never truly listened. Let the storm rage outside. Let the whispers fly. Let the narcissist spin whatever story they need to feel important. Because at the end of the day, the people who truly know you, they'll feel the calm in your silence. And those who believe the smear campaign, they were never yours to begin with. So hold your line, hold your truth, and most importantly, hold your silence. Because not every war needs your sword. Sometimes, the most stoic move you can make is to put down your weapon and walk away. Part 3. Strategic manipulation. Calm but calculated. Now, what happens after the storm? Once the rage settles, once the threats, accusations, and emotional outbursts fail to pull you back in, there's a shift, a quiet one, a calculated one. Because narcissists don't just give up, they evolve their strategy. If rage doesn't work, they try something more subtle, more seductive, more dangerous. They return, not with fire in their voice, but with softness, with regret, with a rehearsed sincerity that sounds just believable enough to make you doubt everything. This is where the manipulation turns strategic. And I want you to hear this clearly. Just because someone speaks gently doesn't mean their motives are pure. Some people weaponize kindness. Some people disguise control with poetry. Let me share a story. Rachel had finally broken away from a toxic relationship. Months of gaslighting, hot and cold affection, and deep emotional confusion had left her drained. She spent weeks in silence, rebuilding herself, healing, gaining clarity. And then, on her birthday, a letter arrived. Handwritten, beautifully phrased. It talked about all their memories, how he'd grown, how he now saw everything clearly, how losing her was the wake-up call he needed. There were metaphors, quotes from old songs, even a line about how the silence taught him the depth of love. Sounds heartfelt, right? But what Rachel didn't know was this. He sent nearly the same letter to 2 other women in the past, just adjusted the details. It wasn't vulnerability. It was strategy. You see, when narcissists realize you're no longer reactive, they pivot. They go from aggressive to poetic, from intimidating to humble. But underneath the performance, it's still about control. Why? Because your silence terrifies them. It means you're no longer available to be manipulated. So they craft a new illusion, one that mirrors your growth, your language, your healing journey. They become the version of themselves they know you were always hoping for. But here's what the Stoics teach us. It's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters. Epictetus. That letter, that apology, that sudden burst of change. It's just an event, a test. The real strength lies not in whether they've changed, but whether you have. Have you changed enough to recognize the pattern behind the poetry? Have you healed enough to hear the music, but not dance to it again? Because when a narcissist becomes calm, it isn't always peace. Sometimes it's camouflage. They want to create doubt. They want you to question your strength, your decision, your silence. They want to shift your focus from how they treated you to how sad they say they feel now. And listen, this phase can be the most dangerous, because now they're mirroring your growth. They're saying the right things. They're using softer tactics, like pity, nostalgia, and vulnerability. But none of it is built on accountability. It's built on strategy. A true apology doesn't come with expectation. It doesn't arrive on your birthday like a psychological ambush. It doesn't ask you to reopen wounds you worked so hard to close. Real change shows up quietly. It doesn't knock at your door with perfect timing and poetic words. It shows up consistently, over time, without needing to be noticed. So when you're confronted with calm but calculated manipulation, pause. Ask yourself, if I had never gone silent, would they have ever changed? If I hadn't walked away, would they have ever admitted their behavior? Do they want me back? Or do they want their access back? And most importantly, am I being loved or being lured? You see, the Stoics remind us that clarity is found not in noise but in stillness. When emotions settle, when the fog clears, that's when the truth reveals itself. So when the charming message arrives, when the gentle voice replaces the angry one, when they suddenly see everything clearly, be cautious, because not all wolves growl. Some smile. And not every "I've changed" means transformation. Sometimes it just means they've changed their tactics. The strongest move: remain still, remain grounded. Observe, but don't absorb. You've come too far to be pulled back into a cycle dressed in softer clothing. As Epictetus would remind you, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of them. And in this case, you are not their words. You are the observer of their behavior. So stay anchored in your silence. Let their performance play out. And when they ask, "Why won't you give me one more chance?" you'll already know the answer. Because true power is the ability to recognize a game and walk away without needing to play it. Part 4. Narcissistic collapse. Ego disintegration. There's a final phase in this cycle, one that many never talk about. It's not as loud as rage, it's not as seductive as charm, it's something quieter. But no less dangerous if misunderstood. It's what we call collapse. Now let me be clear, this collapse is not transformation. It's not redemption. It's not a sign that the narcissist has awakened or evolved. Collapse is ego disintegration. The moment when the mask finally slips and there's no one left behind it to hold the performance together. When a narcissist loses all external sources of validation, when no one is listening, no one is reacting, no one is giving them emotional fuel, they don't just feel rejected. They feel like they're ceasing to exist. Because for many narcissists, identity isn't built from within, it's built from reflection. They know themselves only through the eyes of others. So when those mirrors go silent, when you go silent, they face something they've avoided their entire lives: the absence of self. Let's go deeper. Science shows us that narcissistic collapse isn't just emotional, it's physiological. When the narcissist is no longer fed by your attention, the brain experiences a dopamine drop, the chemical of reward, pleasure, identity. At the same time, cortisol spikes. This is the hormone of stress, panic, threat. Now imagine that inside the mind of someone whose entire sense of worth depends on external applause. Suddenly the crowd is gone, the stage is empty, and all that remains is silence. It feels like ego death, not growth, not healing. Just collapse. Let me give you a real story. Jennifer had been in a long, draining relationship with someone who made everything about himself: his needs, his pain, his plans, his problems. After discovering a string of betrayals and emotional manipulation, she chose no contact, no explanation, no back and forth. Just a clean break. For weeks, he was everywhere, calling, messaging, guilt-tripping mutual friends. And then, silence. He vanished. No posts, no calls, no messages. Gone. Jennifer almost felt relief. Almost. Until 3 months later, she received a vague message. "Hope you're well. Just wanted you to know, I've been thinking." No apology. No ownership. No real message at all. Just a feeler. A test. A whisper of desperation. See, what had happened wasn't change. It was collapse. He didn't disappear to grow. He disappeared because the mask fell, and there was nothing underneath it strong enough to stand in its place. Now here's where things get tricky and painful. Because this moment, this eerie silence followed by a soft ping, can mess with your mind. You start wondering, was he really suffering? Should I check in? Is this collapse his wake-up call? But here's the Stoic truth. Just because someone is broken doesn't mean you are their healer. You are not obligated to be someone's mirror just because they lost themselves. Epictetus once said, "Don't hope that events will turn out the way you want. Welcome events in whichever way they happen. This is the path to peace." So, let's welcome this event, the collapse, for what it truly is. Not as a love story, not as a second chance, but as confirmation that your silence worked, not because it fixed them, but because it revealed them. And yes, collapse looks sad. It may even feel like remorse, but more often than not, it's regret without responsibility. It's the pain of not being able to control you anymore. Not the pain of having hurt you in the first place. And that distinction matters more than most people want to admit. Because collapse isn't redemption. It's not the phoenix rising from the ashes. It's just ashes. The narcissist's fragile ego can't handle being ignored for too long, so it implodes. But implosion isn't the same as transformation. You might see tears. You might hear silence. You might sense humility. But unless it's followed by real long-term change, measurable accountability, therapy, inner work, then it's just another mask. A cracked one. A desperate one. But still, a mask. And you've already taken off yours. You've stood in the storm. You've felt the pull to respond. You've witnessed the rage, the charm, the calm manipulation. And now, you're witnessing the final act. But this is the moment where your peace is most important. Don't go back just because they seem lost. Don't try to rescue someone who refuses to swim. Don't let their collapse become your burden to carry. You are not the cure for a sickness they still refuse to name. So if you've received that vague message, if the person who once tore you down now seems fragile, unsure, ghost-like, ask yourself, do I want to heal them or finally heal me? Because the Stoic path isn't about fixing others, it's about mastering ourselves. It's about understanding that some storms aren't meant to be weathered together. Some are meant to show us who we should never walk into the rain with again. So let the collapse happen. Don't interfere. Don't rush to rebuild what was never built on truth. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do, for both of you, is to stay gone. Let their ego crumble. Let the silence echo. Let the mask fall. And you just keep walking forward. Part 5. The Transformed Narcissist Illusion. Now let's talk about one of the most dangerous traps on the healing journey. The transformed narcissist. This is the part that catches even the strongest people off guard, because it doesn't look like rage. It doesn't look like manipulation. It looks like hope. After months, sometimes years, they return, and they don't come back with blame or accusations this time. They come back looking like the exact person you always wished they could be. They speak gently. They mention therapy. They talk about emotional growth, self-awareness, childhood wounds. They use phrases like, "I've been doing inner work. I now understand how I hurt you. I finally see the role I played." And it's tempting, so tempting to believe it. Because we want to believe people can change. We want to believe all the pain meant something. We want to believe that maybe, this time, it's real. But here's the danger. Some narcissists are smart. They evolve their strategy. And the new version of manipulation, it wears the mask of healing. Let me tell you about Samantha. She left a man who had drained her emotionally for 2 years. After 6 months of silence, he reached out. He said he'd been going to therapy. He admitted to his toxic patterns. He even brought up attachment theory, trauma bonds, emotional triggers, things she had studied during her healing. At first, Samantha felt proud. She thought maybe he really had done the work. They slowly reconnected, and for a few weeks, it was amazing. He listened. He validated. He spoke her language, until the moment she didn't agree with him on something small. Then, the switch flipped. The gaslighting came back. The guilt trips. The cold silences. Same game, different packaging. You see, what Samantha realized, too late, is this. He hadn't transformed. He had upgraded his tactics. He had learned the vocabulary of healing, but not the discipline of healing. He had memorized the language of growth, but skipped the practice of growth. And here's where psychology backs this up. According to Dr. Paul Wink, many narcissists can develop cognitive empathy, the ability to understand your emotions without actually feeling them. They don't change their heart, they just change their script. It's performance, not transformation. And it works, because it mirrors the version of them you always hoped they'd become. So how do you protect yourself? Here's what the Stoics would say. Don't trust words, trust actions, trust patterns. Trust time. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." And that applies here too. Let time be your filter. Let space be your shield. If someone reappears claiming they've changed, don't respond immediately. Give it a week, a month. See what persists without attention. And as you observe, ask yourself, are they taking accountability or just saying the right things? Are they asking for forgiveness or subtly demanding access? Are they genuinely respecting your boundaries or performing humility just long enough to disarm you? Because real change isn't loud. It's consistent. It doesn't announce itself. It proves itself. And most importantly, it doesn't need to be believed immediately. You don't owe anyone instant trust just because they sound different. You've heard their words before. But what have their patterns shown you? Don't let nostalgia rewrite history. Don't let healing language cover up harmful patterns. Yes, people can change. But real change doesn't come wrapped in perfect timing, poetic messages, or emotionally fluent apologies. It comes through humility, time, effort, and most of all, accountability. If they truly transformed, they wouldn't rush you. They wouldn't expect you to forget. They wouldn't push for instant forgiveness. They'd let you observe. They'd let you decide. And if you sense even a whisper of manipulation beneath the softness, trust that. Your intuition isn't paranoia. It's experience, finally speaking clearly. The Stoics taught us to rule our emotions, not be ruled by them. So when someone re-enters your life with all the right words, pause. Don't respond from longing. Don't respond from loneliness. Respond from clarity. Remember, you are not here to be impressed by potential. You are here to protect your peace. And anyone truly worth having in your life won't just speak healing. They'll live it. So take your time. Trust the patterns. And above all, protect the version of you who finally learned to live in peace. Part 6. Final disappearance. Not respect, but exhaustion. So you've held your silence. You've ignored the rage. You've seen the charm for what it was. You've stood firm through the collapse, the manipulation, the apologies wrapped in performance. And now, it's quiet. They're gone. No more messages, no more "I miss you" texts. No more dramatic attempts to win you back. Just silence. You might think, maybe they finally respect my boundaries. Maybe they healed. Maybe they've moved on with grace. But let's talk about the truth behind this final disappearance. Most narcissists don't disappear because they respect you. They disappear because they've run out of options. They've exhausted every tactic, every angle, every emotional weapon they had, and it didn't work. So they retreat. But don't confuse silence with transformation. What you're witnessing isn't peace. It's resignation. They haven't let go of control. They've simply realized they no longer have it. That's not growth. That's defeat. Let me tell you a story. Melissa spent 3 years in an on and off relationship with a man who always had the perfect words. When things were good, they were magical. When things were bad, he always found a poetic way to shift the blame, beg for forgiveness, and reel her back in. Until one day she stopped biting the bait. She went silent, not out of anger, but out of clarity. For the first few months, the usual pattern played out. Messages, guilt, promises. Then one day, it just stopped. A year later, a friend forwarded Melissa a screenshot. It was her ex's new girlfriend, posting a caption he had once sent to her, word for word. The same metaphors, the same emotional insights, the same deep phrases that once made her think he had changed. He didn't move on. He recycled. That's the truth most people never see. When the narcissist vanishes, it's not because they've had an awakening. It's because they're out of fuel, and they've found someone new to start the cycle again. They didn't grow. They just shifted the stage. And that's where Stoic wisdom becomes your anchor. Seneca once wrote, "He who never faces adversity is not permitted to prove himself." This final silence, this moment where they disappear from your life, it's your proving ground. It's the universe asking you, will you interpret this silence as resolution, or will you see it clearly for what it is? Because now that they're gone, you'll be tempted to romanticize it. You'll wonder, did they really care? Was any of it real? Have they finally changed for someone else? But here's what you must remember. They didn't leave out of love. They left out of loss of access, loss of control, loss of the power they once had over your mind, your emotions, your soul. And if they found someone else, it's not proof of their growth. It's proof of their pattern. The lines are the same. The timeline is the same. Only the target has changed. So what does that mean for you? It means your silence wasn't just an act of protection. It was a revelation. It revealed their limits. It revealed their exhaustion. It revealed what they do when they can no longer manipulate you. And most of all, it revealed your strength. You passed the test. You didn't chase. You didn't answer every breadcrumb message. You didn't fold under the weight of guilt or nostalgia. You faced adversity and proved yourself. That's what Stoicism is all about. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about having a spine made of truth. It's about remaining rooted when the winds of illusion blow hardest. So now what? Now, you move forward. Not with bitterness, not with revenge, but with clarity. Because when someone disappears from your life after failing to control it, consider it divine protection. That silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. And if part of you still wonders, will they come back? Maybe. But this time, you'll be ready. You won't need closure. You won't need apology. You won't need them to understand what they lost, because you've already gained something greater: self-mastery. The kind that doesn't beg for recognition, the kind that walks in peace even when the past tries to whisper. So let them disappear. Let them repeat the cycle with someone else. Your chapter with them is done. You've earned a new story, one where you are no longer someone's supply, but your own source of peace. Part 7. The True End. Inner Stillness. There's a moment after the chaos ends, after the silence is held, the games are done, and the dust settles, where something incredible happens. You feel still, not numb, not guarded, not indifferent, but deeply, quietly free. You're not waiting for a text. You're not checking their stories. You're not scripting imaginary comebacks in the shower. You've stopped wondering what they're doing and started remembering who you are. That is the true end. Not the final message, not their last attempt, not even their silence. The true end comes when you are no longer emotionally entangled, when the noise inside your head finally fades, when your nervous system calms, when the need to explain, prove, or revisit disappears. See, at first, silence was a defense, a wall, a way to protect yourself from further harm. But now, silence has become something else entirely. It has become truth. It's no longer a boundary against them. It's a sacred space within you. You walk differently. You think more clearly. You breathe slower. And it's not just emotional, it's neurological. Science shows that as cortisol drops, your stress hormone levels, your prefrontal cortex re-engages. That's the part of your brain responsible for logic, reasoning, and decision-making. That fog you once felt, it lifts. Those emotional highs and lows that once consumed you, they soften. You're not reacting. You're responding. With presence, with purpose, with peace. You stop hating, you stop blaming, you stop needing them to get it, because you get it now. And the beautiful part? You don't need closure from them, because you've created closure within yourself. That's what Stoicism has always been about. Not coldness, not distance, but inner control. Marcus Aurelius said, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." And now, you've reached that place. This doesn't mean you don't remember. It means the memory no longer controls you. It doesn't mean you approve of what happened. It means you've stopped needing to relive it. You've outgrown the story. You've reclaimed your voice. You've remembered your worth. So now, when someone asks you about that person, you no longer flinch. You no longer sigh. You just smile softly and say, "That chapter's closed." No bitterness, no tension, just peace. And this peace, it isn't fragile. It's built on fire you walked through. Tears you survived. Nights you sat alone and chose healing over revenge. This is what real victory looks like. Not revenge, not proving them wrong, but becoming so grounded, so centered, that they can't touch your energy anymore. They can speak your name, but they no longer have access to your soul. Because here's the truth. You don't win by getting even. You win by elevating. By becoming so unshakable, so quietly powerful, that the same chaos that once broke you can no longer find a way back in. So if you're there now, if you've reached that stillness, hold on to it, protect it, honor it. And if you're not quite there yet, keep going. Every moment you choose silence over reaction, peace over control, healing over history, you're getting closer. This is the true end, not with drama, not with grand goodbyes, but with a gentle return to yourself, to that quiet, calm, grounded version of you who no longer chases validation because they've already found something better. Inner stillness. Part 8. Aftermath and rebuilding yourself. So what comes after the storm? After the silence, the collapse, the final disappearance. What happens after you've held the line, reclaimed your peace, and watched the illusion fade? This moment right here is the most sacred chapter of all, because now it's no longer about them. It's about you, the rebuilding, the recentering. The quiet return to your authentic self, the one who existed long before the chaos began. And here's how you know you're truly healing. You're no longer explaining your silence. You don't feel the urge to justify why you walked away, why you stopped responding, why you never looked back. You've made peace with the fact that not everyone will understand your healing, and that's okay. You're no longer obsessed with their life. You're not scrolling through their feed, decoding their posts, or checking who they're with. You're too focused on your own growth to care what storyline they're performing now. You've stopped rehearsing confrontations. No more imaginary arguments in the shower. No more, if I could just say this one thing, because you already said the most powerful thing of all, nothing. You no longer seek external validation. You've stopped needing others to confirm what you already know in your soul. You did the right thing. You chose yourself. And that doesn't require applause. And maybe the most beautiful sign of all, you no longer carry resentment. Just stillness, not because you forgot what happened, but because you've outgrown the energy that once consumed you. This is what true healing looks like. And from here, the real journey begins. Rebuilding your life from the inside out. Let's talk about how. First, reconnect with your preferences. In toxic relationships, you often stop choosing. You shape yourself around their moods, their needs, their chaos. So now it's time to ask yourself, what do I like? What music moves me? What food nourishes me? What spaces feel like home to my soul? Relearn yourself and fall in love with what you find. Second, build grounding rituals, not routines based on productivity, but practices rooted in presence. It could be morning journaling, evening walks, breathing in silence before your day begins. Simple acts that tell your nervous system, we're safe now. Third, choose relationships that support your healing. This isn't about quantity, it's about quality. People who don't demand you shrink to make them feel bigger. People who celebrate your peace, not provoke your pain. If it's not reciprocal, if it's not respectful, it's not required. Fourth, speak kindly to yourself. Your inner voice becomes your reality. Replace self-criticism with compassion. Catch the harsh thoughts and reframe them. Instead of, why did I stay so long? Try, I did the best I could with the awareness I had, and now I know better. Healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel light, other days you'll feel the ache. But through it all, keep your self-talk soft. Keep it sacred. And finally, let joy return. Without guilt, you're allowed to smile again, to laugh deeply, to feel excited about the small things. You don't have to apologize for healing. You don't have to earn your joy through suffering. Let it come. Let it stay. Let it grow. Because healing doesn't mean becoming who you were before the pain. It means becoming wiser, stronger, and more aligned than you've ever been. The Stoics believed that adversity isn't just something to survive, it's something to shape you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way, and now you know, what once broke you open also rebuilt you deeper. You're not the same, you're better." Not because of them, but because of you. So don't rush. Don't compare your timeline to anyone else's. Just keep going, step by step. Breath by breath, ritual by ritual, until one day you wake up and realize you're not healing anymore. You're simply living, free, unshaken, whole. So here we are, at the end of a journey that didn't just test your heart, it refined your soul. Let's make something clear. Silence wasn't the end. It was the beginning, a doorway, a threshold. You didn't walk into emptiness, you walked into transformation. See, the silence you chose wasn't weakness, it wasn't avoidance. It wasn't passive, it was power, it was clarity. It was sovereignty, the reclaiming of your right to protect your peace, your mind, your soul. You didn't lose them. You found yourself. The version of you who no longer dances with chaos, who no longer explains their worth, who doesn't respond to bait, to guilt, to noise. The version of you who now knows. You don't owe closure. You don't owe explanation. You don't owe access to someone who misused it. Because the truth is, healing isn't just about mending what was broken. It's about rebuilding what was lost. Your self-respect, your inner stillness, your grounded clarity. And that's what you've done. The Stoics would say that real freedom isn't about changing the world around you. It's about mastering the world within you. Epictetus said, "Freedom is won by disregarding what lies beyond our control." And what was beyond your control? Their behavior, their opinions, their projections, their stories. You tried to change them once. You tried to be understood. You tried to make it work. But real wisdom came when you stopped trying and started choosing yourself instead. That moment when you no longer needed their reaction to feel worthy. That's when you evolved. You didn't just survive this journey, you transcended it. And look at you now, quieter, but stronger. Softer, but more powerful, less reactive, but more alive. This isn't the kind of growth that gets celebrated with confetti. It's the quiet kind, the kind only you will ever fully understand. Because no one saw the nights you cried silently. No one heard the internal battles you fought. No one witnessed the strength it took to not respond. But you know, and that's enough. So as you step into this next chapter, don't look back, not out of anger, but because you've simply outgrown what was. This is what sovereignty looks like. You're no longer at the mercy of who comes, who goes, who approves, who misunderstands. You are your own anchor. Your own compass, your own peace. Let them say what they want. Let the past twist and echo. You've already chosen something better. Stillness. Not because life is perfect now, but because you are aligned now. And that alignment? That is your quiet revolution. That is your silent crown. So take a breath, lift your head, and walk forward, not needing anyone to follow, not needing anyone to watch. Because your journey was never about being seen. It was about seeing yourself, clearly, fully, finally. And now that you do, there's no going back. Before you go, pause. Ask yourself, what part of you is finally ready to choose peace over patterns? If this message spoke to something deep within you, don't let it end here. Drop a comment below and share. What truth did you need to hear the most today? Share this video with someone who's still fighting for clarity in the noise. They may not say it, but they need this reminder more than you know. Subscribe to the channel for more content that doesn't just entertain, it awakens. Because this isn't just a video, it's a movement toward inner power, emotional clarity, and stoic freedom. And if you're ready to step fully into your own sovereignty, start today. Not with noise, but with silence and the strength to honor it.